Yo, I'm just Lorenzo, and I've always believed you should keep your friends close. But more importantly, you should keep your enemies even closer. And I think it's time we got to know your enemy in The Witcher 2. Let's get stuck in. The enemy in The Witcher 2 are no easy lot to contend with. They take the form of hardened bandits and army deserters to deadly wildlife and monstrous monstrosities from beyond your darkest nightmares. A Witcher must know how to prepare for and combat every enemy he faces, both normal and unnatural. But don't let that put you off. It's time we face these monstrosities head on as we meet and defeat the monsters of the Northern Kingdom.
This is the place the elves mentioned.
ARACHAS are lone hunters. They patiently wait for their prey to kill it, with one swift strike when it appears. They are huge creatures that took a liking of the riverside forest, becoming its undisputed king, a ruler who does not tolerate other hunters on its territory, including witchers. ARACHASes are large, slow, and protected by a durable armor, which is especially tough from the front, so it is much easier to wound the creature from the side or the back. The ARACHAS's charge makes an excellent opportunity for that. One has to evade the charge at all costs by stepping out of the beast's way, and then make one's blow. Without a doubt, it's best to use the strong style against them. The ARACHAS has no fear of poison, and not much fear of fire. Its primitive nervous system barely reacts to wounds, and its incredible vitality allows it to take even great wounds in battle. The beast will heal them after the fight anyway, all while digesting its prey. All said and done, the ARACHAS is a bug, so one's blade should be coated with the insectoid oil before fighting it. The monster's vulnerability to the blade coatings is probably its sole weakness. The beast can easily shrug off all other Witcher tricks, so common poisons and signs are of no use, not to mention attempts to knock the Colossus down. The BRUXA is a higher vampire that is a post-conjunction creature, an intruder in our world. She appears as a beautiful woman, but when she is hungry or attacking, she is terrifying. As a vampire, the BRUXA drinks blood. She often finds a victim to become her lover, and a constant supply of substance at the same time. Less powerful BRUXA often hunt in packs, making it easier to corner prey. If threatened, they attack with their talons and rip the victim apart, pausing only to savour the blood of their dying foe. The greatest threat to a Witcher is the BRUXA's voice. The creatures can screech with such force that the shockwave will knock even a huge man down, making him easy prey for the vampiress. Blindness is as great as a threat as the ghastly scream. BRUXA deprive their enemies of sight in order to play cat and mouse with them. Until their sight returns, one should defend against their attacks in any way possible. For example, when. So what works against the BRUXA? The blade of the silver sword, as usual. Apart from silver, she can be wounded with fire and a stake, provided that the latter is as long as a wagon's drawbar. The BRUXA masterful control of their blood circulation, rendering poisons and oils that increase bleeding ineffective against them. They are good at defending themselves against witches' tricks, but they are vulnerable to fire that they knock down and finish off as they try to get up. The BULLVORE can be compared to a heap of muscles, constrained by a sack of hard, elastic skin. Its head is that of a buffalo's, yet its mouth is filled with sharp teeth, adapted to rendering flesh. As they are slow creatures, the strong style of attack should be used when fighting Bulvores. Their skin is tough, so they easily shrug off weaker blows. Apart from which, they heal as quickly as trolls do. A Bulvore can kill slower opponents with the sheer momentum of its terrible charge. One should wait for this attack and dodge it, as immediately after it rushes forth and misses, the Bulvore will be stunned and thus defenseless. The Bulvore uses a terrifying weapon against swifter foes. It vomits filth that is both corrosive and poisonous, so its foe both chokes on the venom and dissolves into a puddle. The Bulvore is a necrophage, so it should be fought using a blade coated with necrophage oil. The coating will aggravate the beast wounds and give the Witcher a huge advantage. DRAUGIRS are demons at war. They arise at sights of exceptionally vicious bloody battles. They are bloodlust and hatred in condensed form. The Draug is a commander, and his Wraith soldiers are called DRAUGIRS. The Draugs will call them into existence on battlefields or in cemeteries. Like the Draug, they are born of damned souls and trapped shells, created from the remnants of arms and armor, machines and corpses torn apart by scavengers. The DRAUGIRS are absolutely bound by the Draug's orders. They feel no fear or pain. They cannot be forced to retreat. They are the ideal soldiers. Their coming is always sudden, so one must remain constantly vigilant in the presence of their leader, for his subordinates appear in dire moments to defend the Draug and tip the scales in his favour. These wraiths are protected by heavy armour and a shield. A Witcher should first force them to expose themselves, knocking away their shields and grinding down their armour. The best chance to wound the creature comes when the Draugr charges. One should evade the attack and lunge at its unprotected back. The monsters are slow in battle, so one needs to weaken them methodically with strong sword blows and then finish them off. In life, DRAUGIRS were soldiers or knights, and in death they retain their proficiency in combat, so one needs to defend oneself against their blows, their lethal counter-strikes in particular. The DRAUGIRS are susceptible to the Spectre oil, so one should coat a silver blade with it before battle. Poisons and oils increasing bleeding are of no use. These wraiths can be defeated using fire, but the silver sword is, of course, the most effective. Sometimes a drowned man returns as a monster to haunt the living. Tormented with his death, he murders his victims. He prefers to draw them beneath the water's surface, tearing the drowning victim to shreds with sharp claws, and eats them like a wet biscuit. Such a creature is called a drowner. Drowners are not the mightiest beasts in the world, so they hunt in groups. They are surprisingly fast on land, but are a threat only to fishermen and washerwomen. They can best a Witcher only if he is drunk or in love. In combat, fast style should be used when fighting them, and one must spin swiftly before they flee from a Witcher's blade. Enough said. As they are already dead, drowners do not fear poisons, and even a large loss of blood makes no impression on them. This ends the list of the monster's strong points. However, as the rest of the Witcher's arsenal is extremely effective against them, thus the drowners can be killed with fire, immobilized by traps, knocked down, and above all else, sliced and diced until slime spills from their ears. Endregas are forest creatures that resemble arachnids. They are especially fond of floodplains as moisture and tall grass suits them. Longer than they are tall, they move around on all fours and are extremely difficult to spot as they lie motionless awaiting their prey. When fighting the Endrega, use the strong style and target the beast's abdomen, where its armor is weakest. Trusting in the toughness of its armor, the creatures often willingly take blows only to respond with a sudden counter-attack that can be deadly if not evaded or blocked. Endregas can bleed to death if hit with a blade coated with the appropriate oil. They are also susceptible to all Witcher signs. The monsters can easily be tripped up, knocked down, or immobilized by a trap. However, the Endrega's peculiar metabolism makes it immune to poisons. The Gargoyle is a magical creature and often has surprising tricks at its sleeve. Teleportation, for example. An opponent makes a blow and the Gargoyle disappears, only to emerge elsewhere at the same moment, like behind its enemy. It's even worse when the Gargoyle appears over its opponent. Then it just falls down and crushes its victim beneath the weight of its stone body. Thanks to their medallions, witches can perceive disturbances in magical aura, so they see the point where the Gargoyle will appear moments before it materializes, so they have time to react. However, ordinary people tend to die crushed. Fighting the Gargoyle means fighting solid rock, so it should not be surprising that potions are useless, as are fire and oils causing bleeding. Because of its great mass, the Gargoyle's stone body cannot be unbalanced, let alone knocked down. Immobilizing one with a trap will fail, as Gargoyles can teleport and will flee snares using this ability. They have no weaknesses at all, but they can be beaten. The Earth Elemental is capable of felling trees, crushing walls, and smashing people to pulp, but only if its master allows it, of course. The Earth Elemental always serves its summoner faithfully. It is most often employed as a guard, as it is tireless and always vigilant. It does not sense as living beings do, but it always recognizes the presence of intruders. It has no fear of monsters, let alone humans. This monster's most dangerous weapon are its mighty arms. A blow from the Earth Elemental is akin to a battering ram hitting a city gate, and turns a normal human into a bloody steak. Its repose are especially dangerous, for this apparently sluggish creature can strike swiftly as well as strongly. Thus, one has to defend oneself against its blows with all available means, including potions and signs. According to the fight fire with fire rule, or rather the fight strength with strength, one should also use strong blows against the elemental, since only such attacks can grind its stony body down. A fire elemental is totally controlled by magic and is obedient to the sorcerer who summoned it. If its master is a passionate smoker, the elemental will provide fire to light the pipe. And if he is threatened, the elemental will incinerate his enemies. Fire is not the elemental's sole weapon. If you have ever been hit by a flaming bow, you might have a notion of what it is like to fight this monster. Witchers rarely deal with them, but they know that the Lgsi is useless, unlike the strong style of attack. The elemental's repos are truly lethal. Thus, one should not expose oneself too much. Still, one must keep in mind the possibility of many surprises involving flames. In truth, it is best to politely ask the sorcerer to call his pet off. Setting a fire elemental aflame is never a wise idea, so one can forget the Lgsi when fighting this being. The creature is also immune to poisons and bleeding. The elemental has no weaknesses. but most of the means available in the witch's arsenal can be used against it to good effect. Harpies prefer wild, mountainous areas, full of rocky ledges that they can build their nests on. However, they always establish themselves near a human settlement. This is done for the simple reason that they would be able to steal much from animals. There are many harpy species, and all of them are kleptomaniacs, though some steal dreams instead of baubles. As winged creatures, harpies attack swiftly, from a great distance, before their prey can notice them. After landing a blow, they flee for a safe spot. Pinning them to the ground and denying them flight is often the only solution. Thus, incapacitated, they become as clumsy as hens. Stunned with a bomb, hit with the Igni or Ard sign, the beasts prove easy to kill, especially with the fast fighting style. The harpies' greatest strength is their ability to fly, but they can be grounded with the use of a trap. Because the creature's wings are feathered, they are easily set aflame, so using the Igni sign against harpies always has good results. The beasts have an excellent sense of direction and balance, and even when falling about near the ground, they can easily regain the sky, so attempts to knock them down are doomed to fail. Nekkers are primitive creatures that are the bane of the wilderness. The inhabitants of forest villages fear them, and animals give their nests a wide berth. Nekkers are social creatures, gathering in something akin to tribes, for they can only repel the attacks of stronger assailants en masse. When Nekkers venture out as a war or hunting party, they are led by chieftains. They are larger and mark their faces with red clay. Chieftains give orders, turning a wild band into an organised unit. Thus, they should be eliminated first. The Nekker's basic tactic is to strike en masse. They burrow from beneath the ground and swarm upon their prey. Though primitive, the tactic is surprisingly effective. One must be ready to repel many foes at once. The fast style is best suited to this. As with other agile creatures, running from Nekkers is not the best idea, for the monsters will catch up to their prey and swiftly kill it with multiple hits of their claws. Witches can use their full range of skills and techniques when fighting Nekkers. Signs, bombs, poisons, and oils that augment bleeding are all extremely effective against the beasts. Nekkers' nests are best destroyed with grape shot bombs. Given that they are necrophages, rotfiends feed on carrion and human corpses, though this does not mean they do not attack the living. They appear on battlefields, near cities affected by plague, or around villages touched by famine. See a rotfiend and you can be sure that there are many more in the area. They appear all of a sudden, and disappear even more quickly if threatened, so exterminating them is difficult. Trapping rotfiends makes little or no sense. Instead, they are best dealt with by cutting off their food supply. That is, burning all corpses in the area. Corpses must be incinerated rather than buried, for rotfiends are avid and skillful diggers. Without subsistence, the beast will leave in search of new feeding grounds. Both the fast and the strong styles of attack can be used to fight rotfiends, though the fast style seems to be more appropriate. Killing a rotfiend is not difficult, yet one must remember to survive the moment of the beast's death, for the monster's corpse release explosive fumes, and mere spark could ignite. The resultant explosion can hurt the Witcher, but it might also kill nearby rotfiends, creating something of a chain reaction. Thus, a dire monster should be drawn away from its kin. Backed against the wall, a rotfiend flies into a fury, attacking madly. This attack should be evaded, for the beast's chaotic blows carry a strength that can only be called hysterical. Running is never a good idea when fighting rotfiends, as the creatures will pursue their foe, jump on his back, knock him down and overwhelm him. Stopping rock fiends from escaping can be difficult, unless one has a bomb that will stun the monsters and render them defenseless as they try to burrow into the ground. Rock fiends are necrophages, so necrophage oil is lethal to them. Common poisons, on the other hand, are useless. The beasts have gained immunity by these by devouring carcasses. Rock fiends cannot bleed to death, as their body congeals very quickly, but all other Witcher techniques from signs to traps and bombs are effective in fighting. Unlike other monsters, succubus feel no desire to kill, do not crave human blood, and usually do not in fact mean any harm at all. They are motivated by one thing and one thing only, an insatiable lust. They try in vain to slake this by engaging in sexual acts with other humanoid species they encounter. While it must be admitted that their victims rarely put up much resistance, this does not mean that the succubi do not present any danger. Their never-ending advances, though pleasurable at first, have pushed more than one man to madness, or even death. Though succubus are peaceful by nature, when forced to fight, they will defend themselves fiercely. One should thus not be fooled by their fair appearance. Under that velvet skin of their arms lie muscles of iron, and a blow delivered with their rear goat-like legs, or the thick horn on their head, can easily crush bone. Should a Witcher choose to slay a succubus, they must act quickly. Succubi are known for their surprising brute strength. A Witcher will succeed in slaying a succubus if they can pin them down and unleash a flurry of silver sword strikes. If a troll spots his opponent from a distance, he will try to crush him by throwing huge rocks. Trolls are surprisingly accurate when throwing missiles, and their thick skin provides them ample protection from arrows, so exchanging fire with them always ends in the troll's victory. The beast must be reached as fast as possible, and slaughtered with the strong blows. They are sluggish, so a swordsman that evades first a thrown rock, and then a rock-heavy fist, has a chance of survival. One should not take risks, however, and if possible, reach an understanding with the monster. Trolls are huge beings, so knocking them down or unbalance them in combat is highly unlikely. Their ability to regenerate is legendary, and means they need not fear wounds or oil's increase in bleeding. However, their fast metabolism has a darker side. Since these monsters are susceptible to venoms, these swiftly reach all recesses of their trollish body.
Stink.
Werewolves are creatures with both men and wolves inside them. When in beastly form, they take the worst trait of each: the wolf's drive to kill and hunger for raw flesh, and the man's cruel and calculating intelligence. A werewolf's condition comes about through a curse, and the transformation happens outside his conscious control. When he reverts to human form, he has no memory of his deeds, otherwise he would surely go mad and take his own life. Werewolves are active at night, particularly when the moon is full. Though they hunt alone, when threatened they will summon wolves to aid them. Werewolves rarely feel the need to flee, for few adversaries put up much of a fight against them. They strike as swiftly as lightning, with claws sharp as razors, and regenerate any damage received in mere moments. When fighting werewolves, a Witcher should wield a blade covered in oil harmful to the cursed, and have a large supply of devil puffballs handy. A werewolf's curse can at times be lifted, yet there is no universal surefire method for doing this. A Witcher seeking to undertake such a task must there equip himself with a great deal of patience and sturdy armour. These breeds of cursed creatures are quite fast and very lethal. They can jump great distances and at such high speeds that defending yourself against one can be a challenge at best. Utilising the sign Yerdin can be one of your best tools in avoiding their attacks. Wraiths are always connected to the sites of their demise. They may protect their former homes, or they may seek vengeance. One may even find small groups of them wandering damned in crypts or catacombs, or even on battlefields. It is not true that they only appear at night. I can confirm, however, that one cannot communicate with them, and that they have no fear of man or monster. Wraiths hover just above the ground, so they move very swiftly. One should strike at them strongly and make ample use of science. As immaterial beings, they can appear and disappear at will. If the Witcher swings his sword too slowly, giving the ghost time to react, he might find himself striking nothing but air and then sense a quick repose on his back. Wraiths do not bleed, and common poisons cannot harm them. They are, however, susceptible to fire and, of course, to silver. The best means of fighting a Wraith is the so-called Spectre Oil, which should be used to coat a silver blade. Once, dragons were commonplace and ruled the continent absolutely. Dragonfire was the bane of cities, and dragon appetite was a constant threat to the first colonizers. Sorcerers stood against these creatures. Witches were created to fight them. Today, dragons are nearly extinct. The best tactic when meeting a dragon is to pray to all the gods, with no exceptions. Atheists should run. They can thus extend their lives for a few heartbeats. It must be stressed that any of these choices would end in death when made by an amateur. One fighting a dragon should watch out for its fire above all else. The breath is lethal, momentarily ending the fight. Dragons can also fly and are excellent at maneuvering, so they use the advantage of altitude in combat. A Witcher should climb high buildings to surprise the reptile flying by and to use walls as protection. The beast's jaws are even worse than its paws. They bring instant death. Dragons are immune to poisons, unworried by oils which increase bleeding, and unaffected by traps or bombs. One would be hard pressed to find a soul brave enough to drop a dragon. The KAYRAN stands apart among all creatures, large and small, beautiful and horrible. It is unique, not unlike any other being. To defeat the KAYRAN, one first needs to pull it onto dry land, or drain the river meander where the monster lies in wait. If that trick works, it will be possible to approach the monstrosity. The creature defends itself with long, heavy tentacles, and ordinary men would die from a single blow, for these appendages weigh as much as a trebuchet arm and are covered in poisonous mucus. These tentacles should be cut off or immobilized during combat, for example, using a special trap. Once the KAYRAN is unable to shield itself, one should approach its trunk, but beware its venom. The monster spits its vile poison as skillfully as a street urchin. Its armor, tougher than that of any creature, with the possible exception of dragons, is the final obstacle to overcome. One needs to find a way to pierce the carapace and get to the inner organs. Good luck! The KAYRAN laughs at poisons, or it would laugh if it had a sense of humour. It might even fall over from laughter, and that would be the only way to knock it down. But it's not going to happen. If the creature had a circulatory system like humans do, it might be possible to bleed it to death. Unfortunately, it is a monster that makes other monsters seem like house pets, thus oils reducing blood coagulation cannot harm it. It treats most traps as garbage strewn on the ground, but witches may be able to construct traps to immobilize its tentacles. Thanks for sticking around and getting to know your enemy straight out of The Witcher 2. Don't forget to hit me up and subscribe to my channel for more enemy meet and defeat action. And remember, here it's game time all the time.